Welcome to the Calm Nights, Strong Days podcast. With over 30 years in the health and wellness industry, I've realized there's no one-size-fits-all solution for sleep and stress resilience. What affects one person's sleep and ability to handle stress is different for each of us. The stage of life you're in, work and home stressors, and more all affect how your body handles stress and your quality of life. Join me as we explore a variety of tools, strategies, and solutions I've employed with clients over the years in solo episodes, as well as insightful interviews and experts. Together, we'll unravel more pieces of the puzzle, empowering you on your journey to calm nights and strong days. So let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Calm Nights, Strong Days podcast. This is episode 63, where we are going to dive into why some kids struggle with losing. And before we dive into that, I just want to thank all of you for supporting me and letting me know that you are really excited and resonating with me adding kids into this stress talks that we are doing. Because as parents, a lot of our stressors do increase when we have kids, and understanding our kids, especially a child who does have really big emotions, means that these kids often require different out of the box thinking quite often, or we have to understand them in a way that many other people do not understand them. And I'm realizing that I'm not alone in this. And the more of you that keep joining this group and that we are able to bounce things off of each other and share what's going on allows me to help other people feel seen and heard, and also help me figure out which episodes you would like me to speak of. So losing is a big one that I've been hearing about in the group, and kids who struggle with like competition, always in a competitive mode. So let's dive into that today. So diving into kids with struggles, struggles with losing. And by the end of this episode, my hope is that you'll get that aha moment like I did when I learned this. It was very eye-opening for me to learn how I was looking at my child's competitiveness and struggling with losing before versus now. The way that I look at it now, I'm like, I know how to help him. I know how to work through these solutions. Now, this does not mean that because I'm giving you an understanding of what's going on and some ideas on how to work it, that it's going to overnight go away. That overnight they're going to go from a child that struggles with losing and struggles with competitiveness. What you are going to get out of this is being able to find ways to play games with your kids, find ways to do things with your kids where there's not going to be those meltdowns, where you can start having fun and then building those skills over time at a pace that works for them to be getting more competitive. And that's what we are going to talk about today. So let's dive in, because this is a huge game changer. I know that it was for me and our family, and I'm excited to bring it to you. So the biggest thing I find is that we don't understand. Well, sorry, I'm not going to speak for you. I didn't understand how kids can win so much or be so good at something and maybe win often, or have gotten themselves to such a height of competitive level because at the beginning they were always winning because of how quickly they caught on to things. And then all of a sudden they get to this level where they are with kids that are as quick to catch on as they are, and they are starting to lose, and they're not acknowledging how far they've actually made it, not seeing all of those wins, not seeing how advanced they are relative to other kids their age, or they just lose it even when you're playing like simple little games with them, anything that has to do with losing. And especially when like they kick butt most of the time, or they're really, really, really good for their age and they still kick butt and they can't see that gap. They can't see the gains that they have made. All they see is the gap, which there's a book that I love for business called The Gap and the Gain. And that book, phenomenal in helping business owners understand why they're constantly going for a goal and never feeling like they're succeeding, is because they're not acknowledging how far they've come. And that's the thing with our kids, right? It can get to the point where they actually avoid competitions, or there may be something that they truly, truly love that they stop playing. They may never play in certain sports that they're actually really good at, and you know that they like, that they will play for fun with you, but they won't actually go and join a team for, because of this competitiveness, not liking to lose. Or they do join and you cannot leave because you're waiting for the meltdown, you're waiting for the emotions, you're waiting for these big, big emotions to come out when something doesn't go their way, even though they may, you know, be succeeding in that sport. So my husband and I were talking about this the other day, and like, you look at baseball players and their batting average, like if you get 30% of your hits, so if you strike out 7 out of 10 times, you're actually a really good player, a really, really good player, to have a 300 batting average. And that's the thing, is most kids can handle that, go up, they understand that you strike out a lot. Our kids expect that maybe most of the time that they should be hitting that ball, and not seeing that they're actually good with like a 300 average. So that's where it's really hard, because we're looking at this from our side of our understanding of, oh my gosh, like, do you see how advanced you are? Or, oh my gosh, like you're doing so well, or, you know, you're, you're learning and you're not going to get to that, next level yet. You have to work to get there. And it's hard for us to look at these situations and help our child when we're not actually understanding how their brain's working and what's going on in their brains. So the thing that for me has been astronomical is, there's a book called The Co-Regulation Handbook, and there's one chapter in that book on competitiveness, on winning. And reading that book, I was like, oh wow, okay, so here is a child, and I think of this with like clients I've worked with as well, and friends that we hang out with, where they are really ahead in certain things, that it's sometimes hard to see that there's other things that most kids may grasp that they don't, or the way that they see it is very, very different. So with these kids, quite often, this isn't all kids, so this may not be your child, but if it is, with this child, as they explained in the book, with this child, they do not notice the losses, or sorry, the wins. All they see are the losses. So if they've been winning and winning, or they've been getting better and better, they don't see that. All they see is the big L. That's it. They just see this huge L. And so once we start realizing it's not about that they don't want to see the wins, they can't, right? Their brain is not firing in a pathway. So if we think about how all the brain works, and the brain has to have these abilities to do things, it has to have these neural pathways that are like tracking certain things. Their brain isn't tracking any of the wins. It's only super laser focused on these losses. So when they're doing that, that's all that they see is a loss. It's a failure. It's not being perfect. So how do we help them with that? Like, we have to think, okay, we need to, it's When it's something physical in somebody, like learning how to ride a bike, learning how to crawl, learning how to walk, learning how to do things in life, even, you know what? I'm even going to think of mental things. I was thinking of physical things, but those things we usually break down in steps. Let's kind of think of this like dating, right? When a child starts being interested in someone, and they start kind of getting into the dating field, like they're fumbling like crazy because they don't know how to navigate it. And we take for granted how we know how to navigate wins and losses, even though there are actually quite a few adults that struggle with that as well. So the thing is that we need to break this down almost like we would dating, is breaking it down in a way that we can break it down so that it's in steps that they can handle. It's in chunks that they can handle. It's in pieces that they can handle so that they can get to that emotional, mental maturity to be able to handle it. And that's exactly it. They need to get to that emotional, mental maturity till they can handle the losses. And so the steps that we do to do that, which are in that book, the Co-Regulation Handbook by Linda K. Murphy, is to start off with collaborative games versus competitive games. So I used to think to myself, hey, let's play Spot It. Let's do things that are really small losses, small wins, and we'll play Spot It. So if any of you don't know Spot It, it's fascinating the way they figured this out. But on a card, it has, I don't know how many images, maybe 9, 8. I don't actually know how many images are on this little card. It's a small little round card, about 2.5 inches round, 3 inches round. And every single card only has one image that matches with another card in this deck. It's crazy. So you kind of have these cards and you flip them over and you put them down on the table. And the first person to see, like, let's say there's player 1, 2, 3, 4. Say player one sees that 3 has a matching thing to them. They take their card, slap it on top of the other person's card, and say the image. And then the team, or so player 2, 3, and 4 have to continue to do the same until all of the cards are in front of one person, which means that person didn't see the image, and they saw it last. They didn't see it first. And I thought, okay, we'll do this quick. Like, it's such a quick game. Boom, boom, boom. You just do this over, flip a card, do it, flip a card, do it. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. And we'll get him getting used to these really quick ones, and he would still lose it. Right. So what I'm realizing is I missed the step of collaborative first, collaborative versus competitive. And as I'm going through this, and as we've been doing more collaborative games, I'm like, this is me too. I actually don't like a lot of really competitive, what I call ruthless games. I do like games that are collaborative, where I'm working as a team, where I'm doing things as a team, and I enjoy where we're all helping one another. That's where I really love to be. And that's where I have the most fun with board games. And I'm really realizing why I actually don't gravitate towards certain board games versus others. And so collaborative is where you end up helping each other, where you're not like winning or losing. It's collaborative. So I'll give you an example with Monopoly. So Monopoly is where you could play the game where you see that somebody is collecting a color set and you buy the color set to block them. And so that they can't have a color set and they can't put hotels or houses and hotels on their property. That's how you could play it. Or that's the competitive way. The collaborative way is for you to help one another collect color sets so that everybody has a color set that they can all put houses and apartments on, and you wait until everybody has them. So sometimes, let's say I land on the red, and I know that, somebody that I'm playing with has 2 reds. I might buy it because I've gone on it, and I will ask that person if they want to buy it from me. If I say, hey, if I buy this, do you want to buy it from me? And if they do, then I'll just take the money and give them the color set. So then they have their own color set. And so we're all working at supporting one another, bringing everyone together, getting everybody to work together. I was also speaking yesterday with, it's called collab. What is it called? I'll actually put it in my show notes now that I need to write it down, is collab for you guys. I'll send their note, but it is a kind of like video game base, but they have a teacher. It's collaboratories or something. They have a teacher always with these kids that are going through this video game. But like one game he was explaining to me the other day was where a whole bunch of kids has to go through this like maze or thing together, and they have to get themselves back as well to their base once they have gotten to the end, and they have to collect all of the things. And so what he said is that you find at the start that there's certain kids that just whip ahead, that aren't used to waiting for kids, aren't used to helping them out, and they get all the way to the end because in their mind, that's what I need to do. I just need to get to the end. But then what they find out when they get to the end, and the teacher walks them through this in a way that starts creating these neural pathways for them, these brain waves of where they hadn't thought about, well, you've just left your team. How are they going to get to you? How long is it going to take them to get to you? Because you figure this out so fast. Now they're, taking wrong turns and going different places. Now, how are you going to find them? Because you don't even know what direction they went in. And the way that you all win this is by getting back to home base with all of the things you needed to collect, getting back. And the kids that go to that end are like, oh, so they start actually going back, and then they restart the game, and they find that these kids start being more empathetic to the ones that don't know what direction that they should go in, and they start helping them and teaching them and coaching them. And kids that don't know how to teach or coach, they start helping, guiding them with what would happen if you asked them this question or if you said it this way. And they start bringing them through these different ways of thinking to start creating these different neural pathways in these kids to collectively as a team get to the end. And win this game as a unit, as a team. So it's teaching them how to really work in teams, how to work together. It's just phenomenal. And so it's really working on getting things to be more collaborative. So same thing if you're playing basketball with a bunch of kids. It's like everybody needs to score 2 or 3 baskets, right? Let's say everybody needs 3 baskets. And only once everyone scored 3 baskets do you guys win. So once somebody scored 3 baskets, they start passing the ball, or they start helping them, or they might like lift the shorter, smaller kids up so they can score baskets. And so everybody gets to play and everybody gets to score 3 baskets. And you all win and you all high five at the end because everybody got it and everybody did it. And it becomes this collaborative game versus a competitive game. And it's fascinating. And I've had this dream or this thought. I don't have my kid in school, but his gym teacher at one point said that, there's certain kids where everyone has an elastic band, and when it snaps is different in each of them. And that happens, you'll see those kids with those big emotions when you're playing the competitive, that some kids that are really good and get so competitive and they just win everything all of the time, they aren't having the empathy towards the other kids. Or there are kids that think that they should be winning all the time but aren't, and then they're getting frustrated. And then you have the kids that are trying and trying and trying and trying and maybe not ever succeeding, and then they're like, I suck at gym class and I'm never going to be good at this. That it's very curious that I was like, oh, if there was a gym teacher and they have them all from like K to grade 5, what if they actually started from, K, where they're working all collaboratively all the time? Maybe once in a while have a competitive thing so that they still are sparking the interest of the competitive person, or even sometimes splitting them up where the kids that maybe are not ready for collaborative at all, they have them on one side and they have the other kids on the other side. And the one side's doing a little more competitive and the other side's doing collaborative once in a while, but most of the time they're doing the collaborative, and keep doing that throughout the year. And then throw in the odd competitive and see how the kids do, because they still need you still do need to stress out a stress system in order for it to adapt. So they still need to know that's there, how they react, and then go back to the collaborative. And you never know, like, because every year classes are different, who's all in the classes, all of that stuff changes and makes a difference. The year following may be able to do more competitive than collaborative, or may be able to have like maybe 3 or 4 gym classes with collaborative, or in the hour having 50 minutes of 45 minutes of collaborative and 10-15 minutes of a competitive thing in there, thrown in the middle, and then go back to a collaborative. So it's one of these things where you're not competing against other kids, really building that out, and slowly over time integrating the competitive. Now, the one thing with that as well is to add in there as well is with these kids is they don't see the wins or the losses. So every time that you do a collaborative, you start marking that as a win. You go, yay, we just did a win. So you can say stuff like, okay, we all just won 4 games. Let's play another one. You do a competitive and maybe some lose. But then you go back to the collaborative and you say, okay, we won. Or as I was saying earlier for Spot It, and I know that I will tell you that I used to be against this, but I'm on the fence on either side of this, and this is where I was speaking with my husband about this. We were talking about this really deeply, that there are some athletes, there's certain podcasts that are out there. I know I've listened to one where they said that they never let their kids win on anything. And eventually though, once their kid beats them in something and it's like true beating them, like they feel so accomplished and so worth it. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. For an atypical child that can handle that understands in their mind that their parent, who is way more athletic than them, that is faster than them, that is this and that if they keep putting the work into it and they do it, then they will get there. I so agree with that. But not all kids are equal in the way that their brains work, in the way that their brains are developed. And as we said, this is a neural pathway in a child's brain. It's an executive functioning struggle that this child has, that this child hyper focuses on the losses. That if that child was doing that with a parent where they always lost, they would start getting so down on themselves that it could go into some really deep, dark places. So it's one of those things where you have to really understand your child, know your child, and know what's best for your child. I used to stand on that one camp that, yeah, like you shouldn't let them all win all the time and stuff, until I started really learning about executive functioning, about the wiring of the brain, and how it is different for individuals, and what is going to work for one is not going to work for another. And so it is important for us. And the thing with that as well, what I will point out is if you do always let the child lose, the one way to, and that's in business, like you're trying to make it in business, you're trying to open a business, trying to get things forward. And it can get quite frustrating as you're moving through these stages and getting your business going, that if you don't acknowledge all of the gains you've got, all of how much you've learned, how much you've grown. So if you are losing to, let's even just say a race for simplicity's sake, let's say you're always doing 100 meters against your father. And that 100 meters, you're like, oh, I only beat you by this time. And then the next time you're like, as they're improving and it can be working on that mindset of the gap in the gain. You have gotten fast enough to run that 100 meters in this time. I run the 100 meters in this time. So let's work to see, like, if you can, like, I'm going to use Olympic, so we're saying 10 seconds for 100 meters, which is not realistic for most of us, not even close, not even close. but let's just say 10 seconds. So let's say that the parent runs it in 10 seconds and the kid runs it in 20 at the start. And then let's say that kid gets down to 17. You start celebrating, you've shaved 3 seconds off of it. You're this much closer to me. And then you've shaved this much off of it as they keep improving. So that's too, where if we are even working in that, always having somebody lose, as they're getting better and better, if you don't teach them how to acknowledge every step that they are taking to get to where they can eventually beat you, then we're not also training those neural pathways in those kids to be teaching them about how to really acknowledge the steps that they're getting there, to really acknowledge that whole in between, which is where that's where the greatness comes from. That's where we really learn to appreciate things and we understand it. And it's about the whole journey. If we don't at all acknowledge the journey and we only acknowledge the finish line, then we get to the finish line. We're like, okay, well, that is anticlimactic. What's next? And you miss out on it. And you're always going for the next thing instead of really enjoying that journey. So that's it with these kids too, is we have to think about the journey. So we start off with this collaborative and we're thinking this journey, yay, we're having fun. We're finally playing games with them that are collaborative. And now we need to change that neural pathway so that we can start helping them acknowledge that journey, acknowledge the positives, acknowledge the wins that they have had, and help to shift their perspective. And that's where playing a game like tic-tac-toe and keeping track of how many times they win, how many times you win, kind of thing, or don't even do yours, just do their wins. And how many times are they winning, so that when they have a loss, they can kind of see that they have some wins on there, to start getting that neural pathway going as they are getting better and better and better with it. So collaborative before you start any competitive, and then starting to mix some competitive in with that collaborative. Even when I'm talking about what's it called? When I'm talking about Monopoly, you could do things too where you're like, okay, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to buy this red, like I was saying, that I know that you need, but I'm going to buy it until you get a such and such, like until you get a green or something, because I need a green and I'll trade you for it. If I buy the green, then I'll let you buy it off of me. So you're starting to get a little bit of that, you're not going to get this until, so prolonging things a little bit, but working it in. So collaborative before we get into any competitive. And when you start getting into the competitive, really make sure that you start tracking the wins over the losses. So this gets into, this even extends outside. Like I did not realize how much this extends outside of just competing and winning and losing. This can happen in other situations too, where our kids at times only notice the kind of loss of something. They don't notice all that has happened in between. And so a situation like this, as I was working with a client where their sibling, they do homeschool as well, and their sibling is with them all day. Their sibling can choose to work in their rooms. They have desks in their rooms. Most of the time, though, this older sibling does choose to stay with the younger sibling downstairs and work at the dining room table together and hang out all day. They do their breathing in the morning. They do their walks in the morning. They're doing all of that stuff together. And they spend all day together. And then they play games in the afternoon together. They're active together. And around 4 o'clock, the older one is like, I need some space in my room, so don't come in. And the younger one gets so upset. And the parent was speaking with them, the younger one, and trying to help them understand. And they told them about all the things that day. They're like, you did this with them and this with them, and you had fun when you did this. And they're like, yeah, but for 2 weeks, they've been wanting space. This has been happening for 2 weeks. And it is every single day, this older child did want space from the younger one. And the more days that it happened, the more that the younger one was getting upset and having an outburst and being bothered by it. And so it caused the older one to start wanting more and more space, understandably. And when you go to talk to the younger child, when I'm working with them and the parent was telling me about working with them, this younger child dismissed all of the times that this parent reminded them that they have spent with this older child, and only laser focused on these losses, laser focused on these quiet times, on the time that they wanted space. So what I suggested was for the parent to have a talk with the older one. And when they needed the space, what they would do instead is go to the younger one and say, I have had such a great day with you today. I enjoyed doing this with you, and we had a lot of fun doing this, and we had fun doing this and this. I'm going to go to my room right now just to rest a little bit and recover so that I have more energy so that I can do more fun things with you later. And it's fascinating how that has changed things. And that is because of acknowledging this winning and losing thing, where it's really about understanding at the core of this winning and losing that certain kids, when they struggle with losing, it is because that's all they see is the losses, the imperfections that they have, or, the time they're not getting with a sibling, or the time that they're not getting a treat from you, right? Or the time that they're not getting tablets, right? So it's one of these things, if we think of tablets as well, you can start tracking how many hours they've had of tablets on a paper with them in a fun way, not in a punishment way or anything, but in a very fun way, where you're like, oh, you had oh, cool. How much time did you just get on the tablet? And you'll tell them, and you're like, okay, let's write that down. And so they know, they can start seeing how much time it has accumulated. So then when you say no, you can go back to it and say, before you say no, you can go back to the chart and go, well, let me look at your chart. And you can go back to that chart or the checklist or however you're marking it and say, wow, you've had this much time on this day, and this much time on this day, and this much time on this day, that I'm actually okay if you don't spend a little bit of time on it right now, And how about tomorrow, you'll get a little bit of time on it tomorrow. So you're not just saying no to now, you're acknowledging all of the times they've had it. You're letting them know that they're not getting it now, but they are going to get it again. So you can start changing that neural pathway for them. This is not going to be pretty. It's not going to work always right away. It sometimes is a repetitive thing. Think of riding a bike. They have to fall off many times before they get back on. And it's finding the languaging. So when this older brother, he couldn't say, I love doing all these things and now I need space, because space was a trigger word. So instead of saying no tablet time, just say, I'm okay with us doing something different right now, because you've already had a lot of tablet time, and then you can have more tablet time tomorrow or whenever the next time is. So it's also changing your wording, really watching what your wording is. So yeah, anytime that they're learning something, we really do have to make sure that we bring it to the basics, even when some of these kids are at such a level intellectually that they seem like they are grasping everything. There's the higher that they are academically, the higher gifted that they are, more standard deviations on the scale, the more that they often have some sort of executive functioning or, some sort of other struggle in the way that because their brain does think different. Their brain is wired differently. So some things that we take for granted that are just simple things that we should know from life, from growing up in life, they don't. just because they are like so ahead in other things, it doesn't mean they're ahead in everything. And it's important for us to really start seeing, acknowledging where they need our help, because the things that we thought maybe they needed our help in learning certain things, they've got it. It's they need help in these other directions. And it's really important for us to start taking note of that, thinking outside the box, thinking, okay, where are they actually struggling in this? And going from there. All right. I hope that this has been invaluable for you. I know me learning this and what I've been able to do to help my clients since then has been phenomenal. I'm actually, when this airs, after this is aired, I think, no, as this is airing, I'm just about to start another course on executive functioning to actually be certified in it. I'm so excited about this course because it is going to help me really even see other ways that these kids' brains work and the way that they think, to add that other element to my coaching as well. My coaching on top of doing all of the stress and stress management and stress tools that I did working. Wow, I got a huge lesson in working with first responders. Worked with them since 2018. And that was the best education on understanding stress systems, all of the different stressors, how to help people from that. So I've got adding that stress knowledge, and then we're adding in the IFS, the internal family systems, for the traumas. And when I'm saying traumas, it's things with our kids sometimes where when they aren't perfect, where they are making a mistake and the perfectionism kicks in, things like that, where it like rears its head so bad that it rules our children. And now diving into this whole executive functioning thing and co-regulation has just been, amazing for helping out. So I hope it has been amazing for you as well. I hope that you understand your child a little bit more. I hope that you understand some ways that you can start collaboratively helping your child. Absolutely. If you find different ways, join our Facebook group. And please, I'm going to actually put a post in there after this airs, and I'll ask you like different ways that you can think for collaborative games with your kids based on what your kids like, the age of your kids. And if you're stuck on any two, you can ask for help on those so that we can help guide you on that. That would be so cool. One thing is to be aware of the words that you use or the situation, because that can trigger it. So as I was saying before, needing space could be a trigger word, or winning or losing could be a trigger word. To try to think of different words that you can use, because and to help with like that loss focused mindset. And in those moments as well, like intentionally reinforce the positives and the wins with specific examples. So really make sure that you're giving them examples of their wins, that you're showing them that. Find out how your child learns. Do they learn by visual? Do they learn auditorily? So you can start making a chart with like little images or emojis or stickers, or if they're visual, of all of the wins they've had in their day, so that they don't get upset with the losses that they have in their day. Consider rephrasing your requests in a more collaborative way, in a positive way. And the goal is to steadily shift the child's perspective from the losses to the appreciation of the wins, of working hard to get to the wins. That's the goal, but it has to go at their pace, not at our pace. And man, like all of us, I know this, my clients, myself, we all want it to happen now because we feel it's hard for us. It's a stress for us with these emotions that our kids have. So definitely think about this. I mean, there could be underlying struggles as well. There could be traumas. If there's, two parent households, or sorry, two parent, like divorced houses where there's two houses that they go back and forth to, there might be different parenting styles. There might be different things happening as well that are causing other struggles as well. There's a lot more to this than exactly what I spoke of today. This is one piece. The thing is that in order to get up a ladder, you have to take one step at a time. And so this is one step. See how you can make it with this step. And then from there, we start seeing what's working, what's not working. Oh, that's when I'm working like privately with clients, is we're able to really dive in and see where we should go with that individual client based on what is happening with them, with their child, and everything. So all of the aspects. So do keep in mind that this is a focused lens on this situation, and try it. Take your time with it. You're not going to be successful right away. Be calm, gentle, give yourself grace, and just keep adapting as you're noticing what's working and what isn't working. Amazing. All right. I would love to see you in the Facebook group. It would be so nice to meet more of you and learn more about your kids and learn more of how I can help your kids, what I could talk about more in order to serve you better. So join the Facebook group. Link is in the show notes below, and I'll see you in the next episode. Welcome to the Calm Nights, Strong Days podcast. With over 30 years in the health and wellness industry, I've realized there's no one-size-fits-all solution for sleep and stress resilience. What affects one person's sleep and ability to handle stress is different for each of us. The stage of life you're in, work and home stressors, your DNA, genetics, upbringing, social life, and more all affect how your body handles stress and your quality of life. Join me as we explore a variety of tools, strategies, and solutions I've employed with clients over the years in solo episodes, as well as insightful interviews and experts. Together, we'll unravel more pieces of the puzzle, empowering you on your journey to calm nights and strong days. So let's dive into today's episode.